Have you ever felt completely alone, like you're walking through a dark valley with no end in sight? Like every door seems closed and every hope feels distant? What if I told you that this very season of isolation is not a punishment, but a powerful preparation? That God is not abandoning you, but is actually setting the stage for the greatest breakthrough of your life. Today, we're going to uncover the incredible reasons why God isolates you before blessings, and how this divine process is shaping you into a stronger, wiser, and more faithful person, ready to receive everything He has promised. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear could change the way you see your struggles forever and ignite a fire within you to keep moving forward no matter what. Well, let's dive in. Before a great blessing is poured out upon a life, there often comes a season of quiet solitude, a time when God calls you away from the crowd, away from the noise and distractions of the world, and places you in a place of isolation. This is not a punishment or a sign of abandonment, but rather a sacred preparation, a divine workshop where the mighty tasks that lie ahead. It is in this season that God is preparing you for greater responsibility. Think about the stories of the great men and women in the Scriptures. They did not receive their blessings at the height of their popularity or in the comfort of familiar surroundings. Instead, many were called into the wilderness, into the desert, into lonely places. It was there in the quiet that they learned to listen, to trust, and to grow. God's blessings are never just gifts to be enjoyed. They are responsibilities to be carried. Before He entrusts you with something valuable, He must prepare your heart and your character to handle it well. When you are isolated, it is as if God is taking you into His workshop, stripping away the superficial and unnecessary parts of your life, refining your spirit like gold in the fire. You learn the discipline of waiting, the strength of patience, and the courage to stand alone. These lessons are essential because when the blessing finally arrives, it will require wisdom, endurance, and a mature heart. You will need to lead, to serve, and to honor the gift you have received. The blessing will not just impact your life, but the lives of many others. And so, God's preparation is crucial. This preparation through isolation also teaches you humility. You come face to face with your weaknesses and limitations. You realize that the blessing is not about your own strength or ability, but about God's power working through you. You begin to understand that the responsibility you will carry is not for self-glory, but for God's glory and the good of those around you. This humility is what makes you a vessel worthy of the blessing, a steward who will not squander what has been entrusted to you. In isolation, God is also teaching you to depend entirely on Him. Away from the familiar support systems and comforts, you learn what it means to trust in God's timing and provision. You discover that He is your strength when human strength fails, your guide when the path seems unclear, and your comfort when loneliness presses in. This dependence is vital because the responsibilities that come with blessing often exceed human capacity. Only by relying fully on God can you fulfill the calling placed on your life. Furthermore, preparation through isolation equips you to handle opposition and challenges that often accompany blessings. When God blesses a person, it can stir envy, opposition, or unforeseen trials. By preparing you in solitude, God is building resilience and spiritual armor. You emerge stronger, ready to face opposition with faith and courage, anchored in the deep peace that comes from knowing you are following God's plan. In this divine preparation, God is also teaching you the value of stewardship. Blessings are not just for your enjoyment, but are gifts meant to be shared, multiplied, and used to advance God's kingdom. The responsibility that comes with blessing includes caring for what God has given you, whether it is influence, talent, resources, or opportunities, and using them wisely and faithfully. This season of isolation is the time to learn these lessons, so you don't take the blessing for granted or misuse it. The isolation is not a season of emptiness, but of fullness. Fullness of God's presence, of His instruction, and of His molding hand. It is an intentional time where God readies your heart and mind for the tasks ahead. When you emerge from this place, you will be stronger, wiser, and more prepared to walk in the blessing God has destined for you. Remember, great blessings bring great responsibility. God does not hand out His gifts lightly or without preparation. The quiet season of isolation is a sacred time designed to ready you for the remarkable journey ahead, to prepare you to carry the blessing with grace, wisdom, and faithfulness. It is in this preparation that God shows His love, His care, and His perfect plan for your life. When God leads you into a place of isolation, it is never a random or meaningless act. It is a deliberate step toward your spiritual growth, a season designed to deepen your faith and transform your soul. In the midst of solitude, away from the distractions of daily life, your spirit is given space to breathe, to stretch, and to reach out in a new dimension of trust and dependence on God. This is the sacred soil where spiritual growth takes root and flourishes. Spiritual growth is not just about gaining knowledge or hearing more sermons. It is about an intimate encounter with God that changes your heart and renews your mind. When you are isolated, you have fewer voices competing for your attention, fewer influences pulling you in different directions. You are left to confront yourself, your weaknesses, and your true desires. It is in this quietness that God's voice becomes clearer. Your prayers become more honest, your worship more sincere, and your faith more personal. Isolation strips away the superficial layers that can sometimes cover the depth of our relationship with God. In the busyness of life, it is easy to fall into routines, to go through the motions, and to become distracted by the urgent rather than the important. But when you are alone, there is no room to hide. Your faith is put to the test in a very real way. You learn to seek God not because of what He can give you, but because of who He is. This is true spiritual maturity. During this season, God nurtures your inner life. Your understanding of His Word deepens, not just intellectually, but in your spirit. You begin to see His promises in a new light and to experience His presence in a more powerful way. The seed of faith, once planted, begins to grow stronger roots. These roots hold fast through storms and trials because they have been established in quiet, steady growth rather than quick bursts of enthusiasm. Moreover, isolation fosters humility, a key ingredient for spiritual growth. When you are alone, you realize how much you need God. The pride of self-sufficiency fades, replaced by a sincere recognition of your dependence on God's grace. This humility opens the door for God to work more fully in your life. It is often in our brokenness and weakness that God's strength is made perfect. Spiritual growth in isolation also means learning to listen. In the noise of the world, listening to God can be difficult, but in solitude, the Spirit speaks more clearly. You begin to discern His guidance, His timing, and His purposes for your life. This deep listening leads to obedience, which is the hallmark of true faith. The isolated heart is a listening heart, ready to follow wherever God leads. In addition, this time allows your character to be shaped. The qualities that God desires, patience, perseverance, faithfulness, love, are cultivated in the quiet moments when no one is watching. These are the unseen battles where victory is won or lost. Spiritual growth is about becoming the kind of person who can carry the blessing God has planned for you. It is about becoming more like Christ in your thoughts, words, and actions. Isolation is not a sign that God has forgotten you or that you are alone in your struggles. Rather, it is a sign that God is working deeply within you, building a faith that can withstand any storm. It is a time when you learn to rely not on what you see or feel, but on the unshakable promises of God. The growth that happens here prepares you for the blessing that will come, not just to be received, but to be stewarded well. In this sacred season, your heart is being enlarged. You are growing in grace and understanding, becoming more sensitive to God's presence and more obedient to His call. The isolation is God's way of pruning and nourishing your soul so that when the blessing arrives, you will be ready not only to receive it, but to use it for His glory and for the good of others. The spiritual growth that happens in isolation is a testament to God's love and His perfect timing in your life. When God allows you to enter a season of isolation, it is often a time of testing and refinement, a divine process meant to purify your heart and prepare you for what lies ahead. Just as precious metals are refined by fire, so too is your faith and character tested in the furnace of solitude. This testing is not meant to break you, but to strengthen you, to remove impurities and to reveal the true strength of your spirit. The isolation you experience is a purposeful and holy time where God places you under pressure, not to punish, but to perfect you. When you are alone, with no one to turn to but God, your faith is stretched and stretched again. The easy answers disappear, and you are left to wrestle with doubts, fears, and questions that you might have avoided before. This is the refining fire, burning away the dross of impatience, selfishness, and complacency, leaving behind a faith that is genuine, tested, and trustworthy. Testing is essential because it shows the condition of your heart. It exposes the areas where you still cling to control, where pride hides, and where your trust in God is weak. Through this process, you are given the chance to surrender those areas fully to God's hands. It is a holy invitation to surrender everything to your plans, your desires, your fears, and to place your whole life into God's perfect care. This surrender is the key to refinement, allowing God to work deeply in your spirit. Refinement also means that God is shaping your character to reflect His holiness. The qualities that God desires, patience, humility, perseverance, faithfulness, are developed not in comfort, but through testing. Isolation creates a quiet arena where these virtues can be cultivated without distraction. When you pass through this testing, your spirit shines brighter, your faith is steadier, and your testimony becomes more powerful because it is forged in the fire. Moreover, testing during isolation helps build endurance. Life's greatest blessings often come with great challenges, and God's purpose in testing you now is to prepare you to withstand future trials without losing heart. This endurance is not just physical or emotional, but spiritual. It is the ability to keep trusting, keep hoping, and keep believing when circumstances seem impossible. It is this endurance that will carry you through the storms that come with blessing. The refining process also reveals God's faithfulness. In the midst of testing, you learn to rely not on your own strength, but on His constant presence and provision. You discover that even when things feel uncertain or difficult, God is working behind the scenes, perfecting His plan for your life. This realization deepens your faith and anchors your soul in hope, knowing that the testing is temporary and the outcome is glorious. Testing in isolation is not random or cruel. It is an act of divine love. God's purpose is to make you more like Him, to prepare you for the blessing that is coming, and to equip you to steward it well. The fire of testing burns away what is unnecessary and harmful, making room for the blessing, to be a source of blessing not only for you, but for many others. This season also teaches you to trust God's timing. In the quiet and the waiting, you come to understand that God's schedule is perfect and that His delays are not denials, but part of His refining work. You learn to be patient and to wait with expectancy, knowing that every moment in isolation is a moment of preparation. Through testing and refinement, your faith becomes unshakable. You emerge from isolation not weakened, but strengthened, not defeated, but victorious. You carry with you the marks of God's refining hand, wisdom, strength, humility, and unwavering trust. This is the foundation on which God's blessings will be built, and it is the reason why isolation, though difficult, is necessary before the fullness of blessing can be received. When God leads you into a season of isolation, one of the greatest purposes is to remove distractions that keep you from fully embracing His plan and receiving His blessings. In the busyness of life, there are countless voices, demands, and distractions pulling at your heart and attention. These distractions can cloud your vision, dilute your faith, and prevent you from hearing God's voice clearly. Isolation is God's way of stripping away everything that competes for your focus so that you can center your heart and mind fully on Him. Distractions come in many forms: noise from the world, the pressures of relationships, the constant pull of entertainment, worries about the future, and the clutter of everyday responsibilities. While these things are not inherently wrong, they can easily become obstacles if they dominate your thoughts and priorities. When your life is filled with these distractions, it becomes difficult to discern God's voice and recognize His timing. The blessing God has prepared for you requires undivided attention and readiness, and so He gently removes the distractions to prepare your heart. Isolation creates a sacred space where you can step away from the distractions and interruptions that usually fill your day. In this quiet place, your spirit begins to awaken to God's presence. Without the noise, you start to hear the whispers of God's guidance and the subtle nudges of His Spirit. It is in these moments of solitude that you can focus your heart on prayer, meditation, and reflection, allowing God to speak deeply to your soul. When distractions are removed, you are able to cultivate a deeper intimacy with God. The hurried pace of life often keeps us on the surface of our relationship with Him, but isolation invites you to dive deeper. It is here that you begin to know God in ways you never have before, not just as the God of blessings, but as the God who loves you personally, who understands your struggles, and who is faithfully at work behind the scenes. This removal of distractions also brings clarity. When your heart is not pulled in many directions, your purpose becomes clear. You gain insight into the plans God has for your life and the specific role you are to play in His kingdom. Clarity helps you to say no to what is unnecessary and yes to what God is calling you to. This focus is essential because the blessings that follow isolation will demand wisdom and discernment to steward well. Isolation also teaches discipline. Without distractions, you learn to be intentional with your time and attention. You discover how to guard your heart and mind against the things that would steal your peace and focus. This discipline is a vital preparation for the blessing which will require sustained commitment and a steadfast spirit. When distractions are removed, you also become more sensitive to the needs of others. Freed from the clutter of your own concerns, your heart softens and expands to love and serve more fully. The blessing God has for you is not only for your benefit, but also for the blessing of those around you. In this focused season, God prepares you to be a conduit of His grace and kindness. It is important to recognize that God's removal of distractions is an act of grace. It is a loving invitation to rest, to reset, and to realign your life with His purpose. Though isolation can feel lonely or challenging, it is a precious gift of time to hear God's voice, to strengthen your faith, and to prepare your heart to receive His abundant blessing. In this sacred quiet, you learn the invaluable lesson of being present with God above all else. You understand that the blessings you seek are not just about what you receive, but about who you become in the process. The removal of distractions sets the stage for this transformation, ensuring that when the blessing arrives, you are fully ready to embrace it and to walk faithfully in the path God has laid out for you. When God places you in a season of isolation, He is inviting you into a sacred space of self-reflection and humility. This time alone is not meant to be a punishment or a sign of abandonment, but rather a divine opportunity to look inward, to examine the condition of your heart, and to come face to face with who you really are before God. In the stillness, distractions fade away, and you are left to confront your true self, your strengths, your weaknesses, your fears, and your need for God's grace. Self-reflection is a powerful process that requires courage. It means being honest with yourself about the areas in your life that need change, the mistakes you have made, and the ways in which pride or selfishness may have crept in. This kind of introspection is not easy because it reveals parts of ourselves that we often prefer to hide. But it is necessary for growth. Without this deep look inward, it is impossible to move forward in faith and readiness for God's blessing. Humility is the fruit that comes from true self-reflection. When you recognize your limitations, your need for God's help becomes undeniable. Humility breaks down the walls of self-reliance and pride that can block the flow of God's blessing in your life. It teaches you to depend fully on God rather than on your own strength or understanding. This posture of the heart opens the door for God to work powerfully within you. During this time of isolation, you learn that humility is not weakness, but strength. It is the strength to admit that you cannot do it all on your own and to surrender control to God's perfect will. Humility positions you as a servant, ready to obey and to be used by God for His purposes. This is a vital preparation because blessings come with responsibility, and only those who are humble can truly steward them wisely. Self-reflection also deepens your understanding of God's grace. As you become aware of your imperfections and failures, you begin to grasp the magnitude of God's mercy and love. You realize that every blessing you receive is a gift, unearned and undeserved, and this realization fills you with gratitude and awe. It keeps your heart soft and your spirit thankful, which are essential qualities for receiving and managing blessings. The journey through self-reflection and humility also strengthens your character. It shapes you into a person who is patient, compassionate, and forgiving, not only toward others but also toward yourself. This transformation prepares you to face the challenges that accompany blessings with grace and resilience. It ensures that when God's favor comes, you will not be overwhelmed by pride or selfish ambition, but will remain grounded and faithful. Isolation allows you to slow down and listen to God, to your own heart, and to the quiet voice of conscience. This listening leads to repentance and renewal, which are necessary for spiritual growth. The humble heart is quick to turn back to God, to seek His guidance, and to follow His lead. This openness is what God desires before He entrusts you with greater blessings. Moreover, self-reflection teaches you to see others through the eyes of grace and humility. When you recognize your own struggles and need for mercy, you become more empathetic and loving toward those around you. This makes you a vessel of God's love, ready to bless others as you have been blessed. In this sacred season, the combination of self-reflection and humility prepares you not just to receive blessings, but to become a blessing to others. It is a divine molding process that purifies your motives and aligns your heart with God's purposes. Through this inner work, God readies you for the next chapter of your life, a chapter filled with His favor, presence, and power. When God allows you to walk through a season of isolation, He is teaching you one of the most valuable lessons on the journey of faith: perseverance. This quiet time of separation is not merely a pause, but a purposeful process designed to strengthen your endurance and deepen your commitment to God's promises. Even when the path seems long and uncertain, perseverance is the ability to keep going, to hold fast to hope and faith despite difficulty, delay, or discouragement. It is an essential quality for anyone who is preparing to receive and steward God's blessing. Perseverance is born in the crucible of challenge. When you are isolated, it can feel like you are alone in the wilderness, waiting for an answer, a breakthrough, or a sign of God's favor. The waiting tests your patience and your faith. It forces you to rely not on your own strength or timing, but on God's perfect wisdom and timing. This endurance builds spiritual muscle. Each moment you choose to trust God instead of giving in to doubt or despair strengthens your character and prepares you for the responsibility that blessings bring. This season of isolation strips away immediate gratification and teaches you to embrace long-term faithfulness. In a world that often seeks quick results and instant answers, learning to persevere is countercultural, but it is precisely in the waiting, in the sustained trust over time, that God's deepest work takes place. The blessing you seek is often hidden behind the trial, and perseverance is the key that unlocks it. As you persevere, your faith becomes rooted not in circumstances, but in God's unchanging nature. When things around you shift or falter, your confidence remains anchored in the knowledge that God is faithful and His promises are sure. This unwavering trust is what enables you to press on, even when the road is difficult and the outcome is not yet visible. It is the quiet assurance that God is working all things together for your good, even in the waiting. Perseverance also teaches you humility and dependence. You learn that you cannot rush God's timing or manufacture your own breakthrough. Instead, you must daily surrender your will, your plans, and your anxieties to Him. This surrender is not passive but active, a determined choice to keep trusting, keep praying, and keep walking forward in faith, no matter how slow the progress may seem. Moreover, perseverance develops your character in ways that comfort and ease never could. It shapes you into a person of resilience, patience, and strength. These qualities are essential because blessings often come with challenges, new responsibilities, opposition, or unexpected trials. Without perseverance, it is easy to become overwhelmed or give up. But with it, you are equipped to face whatever comes with courage and grace. This endurance is also a powerful witness to others. When those around you see your steadfast faith and your refusal to give up, even in isolation and hardship, it inspires them to trust God as well. Your perseverance becomes a light in the darkness, a testimony of God's sustaining power and faithfulness. In this way, your season of isolation is not wasted. It becomes a source of encouragement and strength for others. The building of perseverance is deeply connected to hope. Hope is what keeps you pressing forward, believing that God's blessings will come in His perfect time. It is a confident expectation grounded in God's promises and His character. Without hope, perseverance falters, but with hope, you can endure anything. During this time, God is also teaching you to be patient, not just with Him, but with yourself. Growth takes time, and healing takes time. Perseverance means you refuse to give up on yourself or on God's plan, no matter how long the wait may be. It is a commitment to walk the journey faithfully, knowing that every step brings you closer to the fulfillment of God's promises. Through isolation, God is strengthening your perseverance so that when the blessing finally arrives, you will be ready to carry it with maturity and faithfulness. This endurance is a gift that will sustain you through all the seasons of life, enabling you to continue serving God and others with steadfast hearts. Isolation is often seen as a lonely and difficult place, yet it holds within it a profound opportunity to deepen your faith in God. When God allows you to be set apart from the noise and busyness of life, it is so that your trust in Him can grow stronger and more resilient. Deepening faith means moving beyond surface-level belief to a place where your relationship with God becomes the foundation of your life, unshakable and unwavering, no matter the circumstances. In isolation, you are faced with a choice to depend on what you can see and control, or to place your trust fully in God, who is unseen but ever present. This choice is the essence of faith. It is easy to believe when everything is going well and blessings flow freely, but true faith is tested and proven in times of waiting, silence, and solitude. It is in these moments that your faith is refined and deepened, becoming the rock on which you stand. When distractions are removed, you have the chance to listen more intently to God's voice. In the quietness, your spirit becomes more sensitive to His presence and guidance. You begin to understand that faith is not just a feeling or an idea, but a living, breathing trust that shapes your decisions, your attitudes, and your hopes. Deepening faith means allowing God to become your all in all, the anchor in the storm, the light in the darkness, the source of peace when turmoil surrounds you. Isolation also strips away the false securities that we often lean on, our plans, our possessions, our relationships, and reveals the truth that God alone is enough. This realization transforms faith from something external into something internal and deeply personal. It is no longer about religion or routine, but about a genuine, heartfelt trust in God's goodness, His timing, and His purpose for your life. As your faith deepens, you begin to see challenges and setbacks not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. You learn to walk by faith and not by sight, trusting that God's hand is guiding you even when the path is unclear. This kind of faith produces peace that surpasses understanding and joy that is not dependent on circumstances. It is a faith that endures, a faith that overcomes, and a faith that leads to victory. Deepening faith also means growing in your knowledge of God's Word and promises. In isolation, you have the space to meditate on Scripture, to pray without distraction, and to seek God's face with greater intensity. The Bible becomes more than just words on a page. It becomes a source of strength, hope, and wisdom that sustains you day by day. This intimate engagement with God's Word builds your faith and equips you to stand firm when trials come. Furthermore, a deepened faith nurtures a spirit of gratitude. When you trust God fully, you begin to see His hand in every detail of your life, even in the hard seasons. Gratitude flows naturally from a heart that recognizes God's faithfulness, and this gratitude fuels your hope and perseverance. It reminds you that no matter how long the isolation lasts, God's love never fails, and His plans are always for your good. This deepening of faith also prepares you for the blessings ahead. God does not bless a shallow faith, but a faith that has been tested, refined, and proven. The blessings that come after isolation are meant to be carried with wisdom and humility, and deep faith is what enables you to do so. It keeps you grounded in God's truth and helps you navigate the new responsibilities and opportunities that come with blessing. Ultimately, deepening faith is about transformation. It changes the way you see yourself, others, and the world. It leads you to a greater dependence on God's grace and a fuller experience of His presence. Isolation, though difficult, becomes a holy season where your faith grows roots that reach deep into the soil of God's love, making you strong and steadfast for all that is to come. When God places you in a season of isolation before blessing, He is preparing you for a greater level of responsibility. Blessings are not merely rewards to be received, they are assignments to be carried with care, wisdom, and faithfulness. God knows that before you can handle the blessing He has in store for you, your heart and character must be molded to bear the weight of what is to come. Isolation is the training ground where this preparation takes place. In isolation, God removes the distractions and the comforts that might keep you from fully grasping the seriousness of His calling. It is a time to grow in maturity, to develop spiritual insight, and to cultivate the qualities needed to manage the blessing wisely. Responsibility requires more than enthusiasm or desire. It requires wisdom, patience, humility, and steadfastness. These are the fruits of the preparation God orchestrates in solitude. The isolation period is like a spiritual workshop where God shapes and refines your ability to lead, serve, and steward well. When you receive a blessing, it often comes with new challenges, decisions that affect not only your life, but the lives of others. God's purpose is to equip you with discernment so you make choices that honor Him and reflect His kingdom. Without preparation, blessings can become burdens or lead to pride and misuse. Preparation also means learning to be faithful in small things. The isolation season is filled with opportunities to practice faithfulness in areas that seem insignificant at the time. These moments are crucial because God often tests our loyalty and trust in what is unseen before entrusting us with greater things. Your faithfulness now builds a foundation for future responsibility and blessing. God's preparation in isolation also includes teaching you about dependence on Him. Handling greater responsibility means recognizing that you cannot do it alone. Blessings come with demands and pressures, and only by staying connected to God through prayer and humility can you navigate them successfully. Isolation teaches you to cultivate this vital dependence so you are not overwhelmed when the blessing arrives. In addition, preparation through isolation sharpens your character. God uses this time to remove anything that would hinder your growth, pride, impatience, selfish ambition, and to develop virtues like compassion, integrity, and perseverance. These qualities are essential for those who are called to be stewards of God's blessings. They enable you to be a blessing to others, to lead with grace, and to serve with a humble heart. This season also prepares you emotionally and spiritually for the increased attention and expectations that come with blessing. Often, blessings bring visibility and responsibility in new ways. Without preparation, this can lead to discouragement or temptation. God's work in isolation strengthens your resilience and equips you to handle these pressures without losing sight of your purpose. Furthermore, the preparation process helps align your desires with God's will. It is a time when God reveals what truly matters and reshapes your goals to match His kingdom purposes. This alignment ensures that the blessing you receive will be used not for selfish gain, but for the glory of God and the good of others. Preparation in isolation is a demonstration of God's faithfulness. Even when you feel alone, God is actively working to ready you for the next step. This truth encourages you to embrace the season with hope and trust, knowing that every moment is part of a divine plan to equip you for greater impact. Through this process, you come to understand that blessing and responsibility are inseparable. God's blessings are not just gifts to enjoy, but responsibilities to carry. The isolation before blessing is His way of ensuring that you are ready, not just to receive, but to faithfully steward and multiply what He entrusts to you. In every season of isolation before blessing, God is at work, shaping, refining, and preparing you for the incredible purpose He has planned. Though the waiting may be difficult, it is in that solitude where distractions fall away, faith deepens, perseverance grows, and humility takes root. You are being equipped not just to receive blessings, but to carry them with wisdom, responsibility, and a heart aligned with God's will. Trust that this time is sacred, purposeful, and full of divine preparation. When the blessing comes, you will stand ready, strong and faithful, able to fulfill God's calling in your life and become a blessing to others. Thank you for allowing me to share this message with you today. May you be encouraged to embrace every moment of your journey, knowing that God's hand is guiding you toward a future filled with hope, purpose, and abundant blessing. Keep your faith strong, your heart humble, and your spirit steadfast. God's best is coming. Thank you.